All right, welcome everybody to Amtgard Leadership University's panel on fundraising hosted here at Gathering of the Clans in 2017. Today we've got a great and experienced panel of members that are going to share a little bit about their experiences in fundraising, some of their trials and tribulations, some of the different challenges obviously that they face, how they've overcome them, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and really their method and process to how they plan for them, and then some of the key considerations that really are probably general enough that we all need to keep them in mind as we move forward. One of the big things you're going to hear highlighted as we start talking about fundraising is, and again, you'll hear this multiple times throughout the panel, it is entirely on you as the member and your park and organization to be working with your local accountants and tax subject matter experts to make sure that you're in full compliance with all the local, state, and federal rules and regulations. So again, please, working with your board of directors, make sure that your good intentions don't end yourself up in some hot water, but making sure you're working with those legal experts. Okay, without further ado, again, welcome to Amtgard Leadership University's panel on fundraising. As typical with ALU, we just asked each panel member do a quick little introduction, who you are, why you're on the panel, what you bring to the discussion, and really what you'd like to make sure we talk about. Starting on my left, Sir Gorin.
Hi, I'm Gorin from Principality of Northreach up in Alaska. I've been involved in Amtgard for about 17 years. I've been in office for about 15 of those, and we up in Alaska have started a lot of initiatives that bring in a lot of money. We're going to talk about how that works.
Fair enough. Looking forward to it.
I'm Queball. I'm from the Kingdom of Polaris up in Wisconsin. I've been in Amtgard for a little over 20 years, but in the Polaris scene for the last 4. And I'm just going to talk about different ways we use fundraising to help our kingdom push. And it's definitely not on the same reach as Northreach, but we did all right.
I'm Forrest Evergreen. I'm from the Kingdom of the Emerald Hills. I've been playing for 25 years now. I've been marked a few times. I've been on the BOD, and so we've had to interact with people who want to do certain fundraisers and whether or not they can or can't, and things like that. So there's a lot of pitfalls you have to navigate when you're fundraising.
Are definitely the silent auctions. It's something I first noticed personally from Glenn a few years back, where they made a different Facebook group and they got a whole bunch of people to donate a bunch of items and silent auction up that. Something at local level brought fries to regular auctions to to work service things. Just different ways to bring in money to help the Amtgard atmosphere.
Okay. Forrest, any other examples?
Over the years you've seen like dollar tourneys. People pay buy a life for $1 to keep fighting in a tournament. Pie in the face used to be huge. Rackus was real big on that when they would make a few $1,000s at one event, just letting you smash somebody in the face with a pie. So various things like that you've seen over the years that have kind of come and gone. Like pie in the face isn't real popular anymore, but for a time it was a real big one.
Okay, great. So Gorin, what's worked for you?
Lots of different stuff. We take the focus that we want non-Amtgarders to pay for Amtgard, because Amtgarders are broke. In general, there's not a lot of money internally within Amtgard. There's some, but as a revenue source, it's limited, right? So we try to participate in things like fairs, conventions, things like that, where people that aren't Amtgarders come with their money to spend it. Things that have worked well for us are selling foam bats. Just basic PVC foam swords. We run fighting arenas where we charge people to come in and play. It'll be like $3 for 3 fights, and we'll have a line all day long. People will bring their kids by, and we'll make thousands of dollars in a weekend just doing that. Another thing that we've done is we've actually tried to capitalize on those Amtgarders that do have money that want to spend it on Amtgard, and take that from them because they want to give it to us, right? One of the ways that we've done that is at all of our large events, we actually have a tiered pricing structure. So basic entry to the event might be $25, but then we might have what we call like our mammoth ticket. That's our Reggie mammoth, which might cost $150, but it gives you all kinds of fun VIP-ish perks that people pay for. We usually limit them to 10 or 12 per event, and they almost always sell out, sometimes really fast. So I have an event coming up this next weekend where we have a total of 10 mammoth tickets. They're all gone, and my entire event budget is like $2,600, and I've got 10 people that paid $1,500 to be there. So, I mean, it almost covers the event, and they're happy to do that, which allows me to keep the cost down or give more to the people that can only pay 20 bucks. You know, and then on the other end of that, we pay our volunteers and stuff too. So, so those things have all worked pretty well.
Can you first off elaborate on some of the perks, but then also want you to elaborate a little bit on what you mean by paying your volunteers?
Yeah, sure. I think that that's an important thing. So the perks, like, so right now at this next event, our mammoth ticket holders, they get a pretty primo campsites. They're huge. They've got power. They're sort of away from the noise and I don't know where everybody else is camping. They get better parking. In addition to that, we have a private chef that cooks all of the meals for the mammoths. So they're getting like steak and shrimp and all kinds of cool stuff because they paid a ton of money to be there. And then we have a team of volunteers that we call our SERPs. And they basically follow the mammoth ticket holders around and do stuff like carry things for them, bring them ice water, lug their equipment out to the battlefield, stuff like that. And so they do all of that, and they get a cool event mug that will be special. They get their own special table at feast and things like that. And we have a group of members that just eat that stuff up, like they love it. And our mammoth ticket holders usually buy a mammoth ticket at every single event that they go to. That's just the event experience they want. We can give it to them, and they're willing to pay for it, so it works for everybody, right? One of the other philosophies that I believe in wholeheartedly is that if an event makes a profit, it should not do so on the volunteer effort of other people who don't get to participate in the event, right? If you're breaking even and you need people to donate their time in order to make the event successful, that's cool, do that. But if you make 15 grand on your event, you should be paying the people that work it, right? So we have a huge variety of tasks that people can volunteer in, and we give them reduced site fees. You know, if they come and help us set up our castle the day before the event, we'll give them 10 bucks off their event ticket. Some people are working the entire event, in which case the event costs them nothing and we feed them the whole time. Last year, we ended up just handing out cash to everybody that actually showed up and worked their butts off to clean the event site, take the castle down and put it away, like those sorts of things. So, so that's something I feel pretty strongly about.
Okay, so that's pretty.
really
That's definitely a bookend on one side, if you will, of the spectrum. Forrest, what's some of the more common things that we've seen that's working across Amtgard?
It's changing, and that's one thing that's kind of weird right now is that when I started years and years and years ago, fundraising was literally, hey, when you're at the event, whoever's physically here, we're going to do this fundraiser, so whoever showed up is who you're going to target for your money. And now with the internet, now with GoFundMe pages and things like that, I've seen people do all sorts of different types of fundraisers. One of our parks in Oklahoma wanted to buy those inflatable castle walls, so they'd have them for gaming and stuff like that. So they just put up a GoFundMe page and said, hey, look, when you've got money, kick it into this. And it took them a while, it took them months, but they just had this very passive fundraising thing going on to get the money they needed, and they finally did, and they bought them. And then now it's like, okay, if we keep getting money, we'll buy extra sections, we'll do this. But so you've got more passive fundraising online that you can do. And I like what he's talking about, actively fundraising, if you can go to cons, stuff like that. We've tried to go to cons, it hasn't worked real well for us. I think that, most of the cons that are available are anime type things like that, and they're not as interested in what we're doing. And if you want to go to something, like our Ren Fair near us, that's heavy market. I mean, Scarborough Fair is, you have to know somebody to get in there.
I'm so jealous of your guys' Ren Fairs.
Yeah. So a lot of what, like I said, a lot of what we do is targeting, our members, which, like he said, it limits what you're going to be able to bring in based on, how many of your members have the money that's expendable. But we do things, like I said, we've done dollar tournaments. We've done fundraisers where, we have people, bring money in a canned food item, to be able to participate in something. Like I said before, the Pie in the Face was probably our biggest fundraisers we ever had. And, there was one event that we raised, I think $2,600 on that. Now that was something that we started ahead of time at the parks. Every park did their own fundraising over time. So during the course of the, 6 months, bring your pennies, bring your nickels, whatever, it adds up. And then whoever you bid on, the top 5 people, get pied. And then we actually auction off the pies at the event, and that raised probably doubled what we raised there. But it's hard. It's hard, especially when you're limited by what MPOs are allowed to do. And that's one thing that you talked about at the beginning, and something that we've had to encounter a lot is people come up with these ideas. They go, ooh, I want to do this for a fundraiser, raise a lot of money. And we're like, but we can't do that because the rules are very specific on what MPOs can and can't do, and that doesn't meet our criteria. So I don't know if there's any one standard thing that we've done. We just try anything we can find that's within our scope that we're allowed to do that we think gives value back to our members. And I think one thing he touched on is something, you know, more specific is people are going to put money into something that they get value out of, whether it's entertainment, you know, hey, we're raffling off Warlord sports equipment. Hey, you know, we're going to give you free entry to the next event, whatever it is. There has to be a value that you're getting back by putting the money into something. And so you've got to kind of talk to your people. What's of value to your people so that you know what to offer them to get them to put money in.
Queball, Polaris did a good bit of fundraising,
Right.
especially during their, even leading up to their Kingdom Year. You want to share some of that experience with us?
So I agree with both sides with making outsiders pay for Amtgard, and as well hyping up tangible items or meaningful items for inside Amtgards. One thing that we've been doing for the last couple of years, and it did help us with several of our good year pushes, and even the last year for extra items was brat fries are a big thing up in Wisconsin. For those of you who don't know what a brat is, it's bratwurst. It's like a hot dog, but better. And these local grocery stores, Festival Foods up there, will let you take over a little workstation right outside their store. You're buying all the materials from them, the brats, the buns and everything, and you're selling them to the people. And you get about 5 to 6 people to work there, about 8 hours, and you make about $500. It's slow. It's a really good bonding time with the people that you're working with. You get to know them really well, and it's kind of a group hangout. The other thing we've been doing this last year that's really working well is working football games. For the Green Bay Packers, colleges do it, different types, and you get a booth with the MPO status, and you get about 5 guys in there to work about 6 hours, and we made, several times, we made about $1,300 a game.
Is that like you work concessions?
Concessions.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Right, but there is no hanging out time then. That is 100% work the entire time. And again, you just got to talk with your board of directors, and you need something like an MPO status to get on for something like that. For local levels, the pie in the face worked really well for us. I just personally don't like people passing the hats and just give me money. Just it doesn't work for me. There's got to be something tangible, something that they can buy into, something that they like. One thing this year that I really enjoyed was for the One Grind Nation doing the T-shirts to get money for Amtgard International. It's, we bought 4 of those shirts, and that's my going to and coming from an event type shirts now. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
No, that was great information. So how do I find out, like, what kind of opportunities there are like that, like the concessions programs and things like that?
Well, Amtgard is really not unlike, it's a nonprofit. It's not unlike 4-H. It's not unlike FFA or Boy Scouts of America. Or churches, stuff that they do to make money for their stuff, we can also do. You just got to get out there, and there's a lot of money to be made out there.
There is so much. That's one of the things that people don't often realize. If you live in a big city, there are billions of dollars changing hands every single day. You're not even barely dipping your spoon in the well, and then you're set. One of the things that I think is really important that I want to touch on is you need to ask yourself, who's coordinating your fundraising? Fundraising is often just sort of an ad hoc, whimsical thing in a lot of Amtgard groups where they're like, we need money, so we're going to do a pie in the face thing at the end of the month. If you really want to do fundraising, you need to coordinate it. You need to have a fundraising plan that spans a year. What's our fundraising program for the next 12 months? What events are we going to participate in? And you need someone to coordinate that. If you take that kind of approach, your opportunities get, just astronomically more, because a lot of things doing that concession thing, that's not something you can just walk in and be like, hey, we want to do concessions next month, right? You got to plan that in advance, because there's other groups that want to do it. So having a plan for that can open up lots of doors.
Forrest, any things that haven't worked?
One thing we've run into is T-shirt sales for One Grind Nation worked great because it was a national thing, and everybody they had a common focus, which was raise money for AI. We've done T-shirt sales before that barely broke even because we thought, okay, this will be a cool shirt for this event coming up. And then people didn't bring expendable cash for that. They wanted to spend their money on other things. So you wind up with a stack of T-shirts at the end, and you're trying to sell them to at least break even. So, sometimes you think this is a good idea. I've seen it work in the past, but for whatever reason, your target audience, they aren't as interested. So you're like scrambling at the end to try and get rid of stock. So you don't have, now I got to keep track of 200 t-shirts that didn't sell and we're out all the money on them. So, things like that, you just got to be careful if you're going to put money ahead of time into something, that you've got a good indication that people are either pre-registering to buy them, things like that, so you don't wind up losing money on something that then you have to keep track of.
Right. And it's important not to invest in things that go bad. So if you buy a t-shirt, don't put a date on it. Something you could sell at the next event. I mean, people make that mistake. So it's something you can easily sell in the future helps, because then you're guaranteed to at least not lose your money in the long run.
Does anybody have a rule of thumb? So a lot of work and effort, car washes, right? For a long time used to be a big thing. We'll go do a car wash. And we just need 20 people to devote their entire day to this. And yay, we raised $150. Does anybody have a good rule of thumb on what's a good time investment versus
$10
the
an hour.
amount?
If you were to pay your people $10 an hour to do what you're asking them to do, would you break even or lose money? If the answer is, yeah, you're going to break even or lose money, then don't do it. It's a waste of their time, really. But if you can find a way that those people could, bring in $12 an hour worth of value, then that's absolutely a reasonable use of their time. So car washes, they tend to not get that. That's my rule of thumb anyway.
Okay. Anybody else got something similar? Or?
I don't know about $10 an hour. I would definitely be a lot less. And
You could have a different rule.
a little cheaper, but definitely car washes. I've done several of those, not with Amtgard, but with organizations as a kid, and making $150 for 8 hours is for a lot of us out there is not really worth it at all. The brat fries, they're about $500 for 8 people. I guess that is about $10. So
Comes out pretty close.
yeah.
It's a good rule of thumb.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the intangibles you mentioned? I can't remember who mentioned, but the downtime, having opportunity just to team build and things like that. You want to share? Queball, it may have been you. Do you want to share a little bit about that, kind of the?
So I've done several of these brat fries up in Polaris now, and every time, 8 hours just talking with people, the people you're working with, it is a bonding experience. I know those people very well now, and look forward to doing stuff with them in the future. So it is definitely, don't just do it with your company, don't just do it with your park. If it is a kingdom-based organization, spread out, get to know your people. It's, it's really good ties and stuff down the line.
It really is.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about some what everybody's done. We talked about some successes, a couple failures, or at least how to judge what a failure is. But what if I've got this great idea, right? Any tips on maybe things to consider before I approach the board of directors or my kingdom monarchy? Forrest, what do you want to see from that new fundraising bid?
Well, first thing we see is, obviously just meet the guidelines. I want them to do at least have checked ahead of time. I don't want them to come to me with an idea that I know can't pass, because they could put all that time and energy in just for us to go, can't do it. That's not only bad because we couldn't help them, but it really disheartens people that put a lot of time and effort to thinking this is going to be awesome and y'all just shot me down. So I'd really like to encourage people to do that, but I also would like to see that they've done a little legwork on, do you have a team? Have you talked to people about helping you run this? How's it going to look? What's your time frame on it? Is this something that's going to be open-ended? Is this something you're going to run from here to here? And have you gauged the interest? Have you talked to other people and said, hey, if we do this, are you interested? Because if you have what seems like a great idea, and we say, okay, let's put the stamp of approval on it, and then you start promoting it, and the general response is, meh, then we really aren't going to get anywhere. We could have spent that time on something that was going to be more productive. So, do your background check before you come to the people that get you the stamp of approval, so that we know it's something that you put the time and effort to saying, this can work. And let me show you why it can work, rather than just, I think it'll be neat, let's hope it works. So I think that would be very beneficial, not only to the people trying to approve it, but the person putting the effort into it, so that they know, hey, I've done the research, I can show you why it's going to work.
Queball, it sounds awful like an event bid. About the same?
No, 100%. And one thing I would add to that is the timing. Timing is everything. So y'all were talking earlier about can only do 2 raffles per year. Luckily we don't have that in Polaris, but you can also saturate the pond pretty quickly. And you need to have some sort of organization, because Food Fight is a staple for Amtgard. The month of September, we're out there, we're doing our stuff. Doing something in August for your local kingdom is going to hurt that for the September, and doing something right afterward is probably not going to help either, because everybody's already put money towards that. So when it's especially internal money,
Right.
Know your schedule, know your timing, talk to your people, and you can't do something every month. Like, that is a problem that is starting to happen in Polaris, and it will be dealt with over the next few months. Just too much too soon.
Sure. Gorin, you had something to add?
Yeah, a couple things there. One was on the new, fundraising ideas. It's really important that if you're not in leadership, that you talk to your leadership, and if you are in leadership, you prepare your people for the idea of new fundraising before they know what that idea, the new fundraising is, because I have found in my experience that Amtgarders are very hesitant to embrace something new when it is introduced. In fact, most of the fundraising that we have in Northreach, I've had to fund my own pocket to demonstrate proof of concept before I could get the all thing to accept it. But if you have a leadership group that is like, we're going to try a new fundraiser this year. We don't know what it is, but we are committed to trying a new fundraiser. So if you guys have ideas, let's hear them. They're in the right mindset to look at those ideas objectively, right? Otherwise, you might have good ideas that get shot down, and then you have that discouragement that Forrest is talking about, where people get behind it. They may have an amazing idea, it's just not going to get traction if people aren't willing to listen to it. And so telling people, like, we're going to have open ears this year, we're going to try something new, and it's going to be awesome, and that's good. And as far as the saturation stuff goes, I found that Amtgarders can generally handle things quarterly. Anything more than that tends to start diluting things, and that's always bad. But if you can break it out regionally, if you have, like, one side of the state you want to do something here, another side of the state you want to do something here, then you can start stacking them up, if you're looking for external funds anyway. But you also got to be aware of burnout for your people. They got to work.
Well, and that's another aspect I wanted to. We're talking a lot about money and ideas, but the internal factor is the workforce, right? All of a sudden, hey, we play Amtgard on Sunday, so I need all day Saturday at the car wash or work in this, right? Forrest, what are some considerations when it comes to that?
I think one of the problems is that you often have some of the same people jumping up to help. And so they start to get burned out because you kind of have a pool of people you tap from and say, hey, I know these people are reliable, they'll do it well, they're good with people. If I have to communicate with the public or whatever, I know they're good at it. And so you start tapping on those people to do stuff, and over time they start to burn out. Not because you're doing tons of fundraisers at once, but because they're the same pool that you draw from, because when you've tried to get other people to do it, they either go, oh, it's a cool idea, but I don't want to put the time in, or they try to help, and sometimes that person isn't the best suited for that type of fundraiser. And so you got to be careful, when you're looking at who's going to help out with the fundraiser, that you're not just defaulting to, oh, hey, I know this guy, he's a friend of mine, I'm going to have him come help. Because he probably will. And over time, he's going to be like, oh, dear God, I'm not going to answer the phone because he's just going to ask me to help with something else, So make sure you're kind of spreading it out. Make sure that, you're always bringing new people, because the other thing is, we're not going to be here forever. One day us old idiots are going to quit doing the stuff, and the younger generation is going to take over. And if we don't groom them to do that and say, hey, here's how this is done, and let me get you involved so you can see it, and then encourage you to come up with ideas, you're going to wind up really kind of narrowing your pool down to the point you can't run a good fundraiser.
So you mentioned a little bit about the right person. You talking about isn't any volunteer the right volunteer?
No. For example, there are some people who are really, really good with balancing numbers and organizing things and keeping stuff. I know every penny that went in, went out, when it did all that stuff, and they are awesome at that. But if I ask them to stand up in front of, even 10 people and explain this fundraiser or try to hawk what we're doing, they're going to freeze up. They're going to stand right through it. That's not their comfort zone. So I wouldn't want to put them in that role. If they want to help, I want to find the role that makes them the most comfortable, so that when they're helping, we're getting the most out of their help. So you really have to know your people and know what are they good at. I know certain people that I can put them up in front of a crowd of people, and they can sell ice in the winter because they can talk to a crowd and make them want to buy something or make them want to invest in something. And I have other people who, like, hey, will you balance the spreadsheet while we're doing this? They're like, okay, math is hard, and you wind up going, wait, why does nothing balance? Well, I thought I did it. So any volunteer can be put to a good use. Any volunteer can have value, but there are certain roles that people are going to fit better in, and you want to maximize what you're getting out of the people that volunteer so you have the best fundraiser you can have.
And sadly, most of these type external concession stands brought fries, are salesman type roles, and you want to have your salesman to look presentable, to draw more people in. There is, even our society today that is constantly changing, and we are getting more to a neutral, but you want your prettier people up there to bring people in.
Sure. It's true. Like, I break my volunteers down into categories. I mean, I've got admin, right? I've got customer service, and I've got labor. And then within each of those, I've got leadership, right? Managers, shift leaders. And you have to not just know what they're good at, but you also have to, within that, develop skills. We talked a little bit in the last panel about how Amtgard does a bad job of training its employees. If you want to have a successful fundraising campaign, you need to train your people to do it. So, like Forrest was talking about with the burnout, if you have someone that's an amazing autocrat, you need to make sure that they're on the same page and understanding that it's their job to train shift supervisors so that they can become great autocrats and managers of what you're doing when that guy's not available, or if you're doing 5 events a year, you can't do them all. So, so knowing where their strengths are and then developing those strengths will pay out in the end a lot.
So say I have been given an opportunity. What are some things I could do at a convention? You can set the tone of what kind of convention, right? Because there's numerous types. But what are some things, we'll just scope it, at a convention that's worked? And what are some, oh my gods, don't do this? Everybody's kind of like, Queball, you win.
So we use conventions for recruiting. We don't actually make money at conventions. I like the idea for selling swords and all that, but that's definitely getting to the Amtgard aspect of it, and I don't know the legality of our stuff. But I mean, my advice for convention is, even if you are selling stuff, that is your possible recruiting people. Those are the best people that are going to come out to Amtgard. So always be polite, always be nice. Just know you're representing Amtgard and your kingdom and your people, and that's your future right there.
If you go to a fair, right? You generally have 3 different kinds of booths. You have food, you have sales, and you have activities. We can do any of those, or we can do all 3, or we can, and you just have to decide what you want to do. So when you're selling swords, you're selling stuff. You're selling toys, basically. I've personally found that one of the best ways to recruit an Amtgarder is to make sure they have a sword. They will come out and swing it at people. Or at the very least, they'll swing it at somebody else on the street, and that person will ask them where they got their sword. That helps the greater conversation. But if you want to make the most money for the least amount of investment in your people, activities, right? If you own a bouncy house, you can make tons of money without a lot of effort by just putting it up and letting people jump on it. So we generally run a fighting arena. Takes 2 or 3 people to run it all day long, and we'll have a line of kids that want to just hit each other with bats and pay for it. So that doesn't require a lot of investment, so there's very little burnout. Whereas if you sell stuff that you have to make on your own, it requires a lot of prep work, it requires investment in materials, lots of investment that can lead to burnout, and again, you have to have money to make money at that point.
I think combining what they said is a very important part. What is the focus of your fundraiser? Is it to raise as much money as possible, or is it to raise some money while you're generating interest in Amtgard? Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of on the side of Queball here, is when we've gone to cons and conventions, things like that, it's mostly been to recruit players, to bring people in. We've done some sales in the past, but there's really a different theme there. What is my goal? And if my goal is just to raise as much money as I can, doing activities, doing the least cost for the most value is what you want. But if you want to also bring in people so that you've got more players, which then over time gives you more opportunities to do fundraising and to have that population increase, then maybe putting more time into crafting things that are useful in Amtgard and selling them and generating that interest by saying, when you take this, you're going to be able to say, I got this sword from this Amtgard booth and they play on Saturday. I'm going to go check it out. There was a group that sold swords out at Scarborough Fair for years. They weren't necessarily Amtgard legal after a certain point in time because they were using technology, weird word, but technology was much older because they quit playing the game. But they made a lot of money selling weapons, and then people were interested in, going around and hitting people with these swords. This is fun. Where can I do this? And so if you can tap that and you make some money on it, but you also generate interest, then you also have more long-term. Now I've got more people coming in that are interested, and so in the future when I do fundraisers, I have a bigger population base to pull from. So you got to know what your focus is going in.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more internal, like fundraising feasts and activities like that. Any best practices from those? I mean, a $20 feast for a hamburger and fries.
Yeah, it's got value, man. I mean, you've got to give them what they paid for and find a way to make money out of it.
Something we did last year at Keep on the Borderlands to raise money for every feast was we had the premiere dinner, and it had a small following, but they're doing it again this year, and I think it's going to grow and grow. But, you know, we had some of the Raiders come in and do a really good feast for a $25 ticket for a meal. And while that raised about $1,000 that went through the rest of the feast at Keep on the Borderlands, you know, it was more than just hamburgers and hot dogs. But it's something that Gorin touched on earlier. It's just it's a premium effect or whatnot, and you know, people like that.
Yeah, 'cause
Get the Raiders to come cook for you.
Right. I mean, I'll be honest. Like when I go to events, I generally don't eat the feasts. I don't. It's a personal thing for me. But there have been events that I've gone to where if that was the level of feast that was being provided, I'd be the first one in line. And the Raiders feasts are generally it. Like they're the bar that I hold everybody else to. So if you have the opportunity to sink a little extra money into a premium feast, people will pay for it.
And in that case, name recognition is important, because I know we're joking about it, but it's in all honesty, I've heard people say, oh, the Raiders are doing feast, I'm eating feast. Like, I want to see what they're cooking, because I know it's going to be good. And you know the people in your neck of the woods that people go, oh, I know they've done a feast, or they've done this, and I know they're good at it. So, you know, if you can say, oh, this is going to, you know, we're bringing the Raiders into a feast, or hey, you know, we got, you know, Everlast is cooking brisket, you know, which is something that people in our area know that he does really good at, then people are more willing to go, yeah, I'll kick in some extra cash knowing that that person or that group is in charge of the food because I know the quality of food they've put out in the past. So, you know, being able to either people in your own group that are known for what their cooking is, or like I said, you know, we had the Raiders come up for Banner Wars one year, and that was one of our big things was, oh, by the way, they're doing feast. And people were like, oh, yeah, we're eating feast. We can't wait to be there.
Well, I think that hits on a big topic, and this isn't going to be a question so much as an inserted statement, is we do a lot of things, whether it's feasts or events, often with the side goal of raising funds, right? Good, bad, and different, we do that. But I think it's important that as we do that, that means we're treating Amtgarders like customers, and customers have expectations. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we lose sight of that because we think, well, they're Amtgarders first. Well, when I'm paying $50 for an event, I have expectations that I'm going to get something out of that $50 other than fighting with the same bros I always fight with, right? And sometimes going along the line, whether it's a feast or whatever it is, that if we're going to up the cost for the intensive fundraising, there better be an up in expectation and quality that's provided, right? I think we've proven that Amtgarders are willing to spend money whenever it's money well spent.
Right.
And just again, an unrequested editorial, but I think we forget that too often. So, okay, that's it. I've got this great idea. I'm going to do a car wash because I can do the car wash like nobody else car wash, or whatever widget you want to talk about it. We talked a little bit about how it looks like an event bid. I've got my team together. Are there any other considerations? Because we did that under the board, but now we're really starting to get close to my fundraiser. What are some things I need to be thinking about?
So this is a fundraiser that's been approved?
Yeah, it's been approved. They love the idea, although nobody knows the details of that idea because then it would be mapped out. But everybody loves my idea, and they're like, okay, go, Chris, go forward with that and raise us billions of dollars.
Logistics.
Yeah.
That's everything every panel I've always done for you Goldcrest is always boils down to logistics. Your people, your materials, the time, the place, you know, what's going on.
I think one thing we haven't touched on yet that is important, because you've got a range of fundraising here. I mean, the amount that they're fundraising, we're a drop in the bucket, and we're nowhere close. And the reason is we don't need to, you know, because we don't have plans for that money. And I think that's one thing we haven't touched on yet that's very important is if you're going to raise funds and you wind up raising $4,000 and you plan to raise $400, what are you going to do with that? Because you can run into some real problems when you raise a ton of money. And it's like, okay, now we're going to use this to do these things. Then you got some people going, well, why don't we get this instead? Because that's what we want. You know, why don't we, now that we have all this money, why aren't we doing this? Or why aren't we paying for people to do this? Why aren't we having all of our events for free? And you've got to kind of have a plan ahead of time. If I raise money, what am I going to do with it? Why am I raising this money? And if I raise extra money, what can we do with it? What would be a good return on investment for our populace? And I think it's one thing we haven't touched on is just having that plan beyond, once I have the money in my pocket, that's awesome, what do I do? And you've got to have that foresight to know, okay, like he said, we want to raise enough money someday that we can say, everyone who's dues paid, you're getting flown to Clan this year, you know, because we raised that much money. And so we know going in, if we start raising a crap ton of cash, that's what we're going to do with it. So I think that's something we need to really focus on when we raise funds is why and what will we do with them, especially if we get more than we planned on.
Do your lands usually have a budget, like mapped out, so you know if you need to even do fundraisers? Because I mean, it sounds like fundraising is a lot of work. Maybe I don't need to do them. I mean, is that common for your lands that you have an annual budget?
In my opinion, that's the first step. Like, what are you raising money for? What is the extra money going to go for? It's not like, hey, look, we're going to raise money. You know, for the established stuff like food fight, that's 100%. Well, I mean, it's already there, but we're raising money for what all the money is going for. But yeah, no, you have to have a plan for if it does 10 times the best, what's the extra money going to? And you can't just decide on your own. It needs to be already set in stone what it's going for.
I mean, like, society has come up with best practices when you have money involved, whether it be a household or a business, or you have a budget. Like, at Northreach, we have an annual budget that gets voted on every February. And it maps out all the money that we're going to make and spend for the next 12 months. That gives us a really good idea of how much money we need to raise and what we're going to spend it on. It also has the added benefit of we don't have to have all things all the time to spend money because we've done it already. But that money map is necessary. Otherwise, you have no way to measure your success, and you have no way to understand what it is you're reaching for.
Okay. Real quick in the last piece, Forrest, I need to raise $200. What's a fundraiser that comes to mind?
Quick for $200. Yeah. Tell them that MHOG's going to come to your event and you get 10 minutes free with him. 10 minutes of alone time with him. No, I'm kidding. I would pay for that though. Quick $200. I think that it depends on the time of year. Because right now, summer in Texas is hot, like horribly hot. It's nasty. People don't want to go out and fight.
But we need the money now, so.
Right. So depending on the time of year, it's like right now in summer when you do it, we're doing a water balloon fight. You pay $1 for a water balloon and they are throwing weapons and you get to go out there and do that kind of stuff and you get your whole kingdom. That's your kingdom visit day. Everyone's going to join it in that one spot for that day. And so you get, 80 to 150 people that show up at that one park and you're getting them to buy water balloons and you're, selling little, things there. Boom, you raise a quick amount of money. I don't know if you're going to hit 200, but that's a quick fundraiser you can do. If it's in the winter, something else like, find what's going to work in that moment. But that's when you have to tap your individual market. You're not going to go out and do something, concession stand for people outside of Amtgard. You've got to be able to hit your populace for that $200, and you've got to know in my kingdom what's of value. And right now in Texas in the heat, this month, if I want to raise money, that's how I'm doing it. Because people, if I want them to come out, they don't want to be dying in the heat.
Okay. Queball, I need $500 and you got 2 months to plan. What do you do?
$500 2 months. I would do brat fries and stuff, local festival foods or local grocery stores. It's easily.
How did that get started? I know I'm bouncing around. You guys are used to this.
It has to do with the Frostlands. Like they were an oddity. 2001 they started when there was no Amtgard up there, and it's something they've always done. They've always done this summer event called the Greater Ventures Challenge, and they've always paid for it internally and raised the money, thousands of dollars, and that's something that when I came up there I got onto.
Gorin, I need to raise $1,000 and you got 4 months to plan. What do we do?
4 days.
Not in Alaska.
Oh. No, let me give you an
What's something general?
No, let me give you an example. This is actually specific. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We had a member of our principality whose house burned down. And it's him and his wife and their 6-week-old baby, right? Their house burned down. And the next weekend, we did what we call Bribe the Reeve tournaments, where you pay $1 and you can basically cheat, right? We raised $1,100 in one weekend and gave it all to this family. And it was over something silly like, you can throw fireballs as a warrior for $1, whatever. People would love it, and they loved knowing what they were doing it for. If you can ask Amtgarders for money and give them something trivial like water balloons or cheating in the rules. If they know why they're giving it, they'll do it. I wanted to raise a castle, and I had about 4 weeks to raise money for it. I wanted to build a castle. I said, here's my plan, put it on the internet, here's my schematics. I'm going to build a castle. It's going to be 20 feet wide and 15 feet long or whatever. And it's going to cost about $1,500. Here's the lumber prices, whatever. And we have an online store, so I just put a link up there and said, here, you can just basically buy a donation. I raised $4,000 in 6 weeks. And we built a giant castle. And we had enough money left over to set it aside for castle repairs in the future, and we did that. Because people knew what they were spending it on, and that was something they wanted. So that would be, I guess, the general answer would be find something that Amtgarders would be willing to give you money for, and then ask them for it.
So that's a great spot for us to transition to any closing comments. So Forrest, we'll start with you. Any last minute, I'm only watching the last 3 to 5 minutes of this. What do you want to make sure all of Amtgarders hear?
I mean, to sum up, make sure that you've talked to your people in charge, that you can do a fundraiser. Make sure that it's allowable and know your local rules, your local laws. Make sure you have a purpose for it. Do I need the money? Why do I need the money? Make sure people know, because if they know what they're investing in, they're more likely to do it, and make sure they're getting a return on their investment. If I invest in this, what am I getting out of it? Is it tangible? Is it an activity? Is it, food, whatever? What am I getting out of this, the WIFM? What's in it for me? Because that's what it boils down to. People are going to give you money if they find value in giving you money, and you've got to make them see the value.
Okay. Queball?
Externally, we want a good name for Amtgard. Be polite, clean, be nice. You're always recruiting. It's always a two-part thing with fundraising is you're putting yourself out there to the public, and then internally, be passionate about it. Don't just go through the motions. Believe in your product.
Gorin?
Man, every business out there is fundraising. That's what they're collecting money. So whenever we do fundraising, we are asking someone to give us money. There's a whole massive, gargantuan, planet-wide industry on how to do that. Okay, we don't need to reinvent any wheels. Every business out there, every charity, church, whatever, they've refined this to an art form. Look out there. Look at how people make money and model it. Find a way to transform what they're doing to something that's appropriate to what we do. Because there's an unimaginable amount of money out there. We don't need a lot of it. I mean, percentage-wise, it's not even, calculable. It's just a tiny little bitty piece of that pie will send us to the moon and back. So look out there, organize what you're doing, have a plan, coordinate it, and dip your spoon in the well, man.
Got it. Well, thank you all for spending some of your time. Again, we're here at Gathering the Clans in 2017, and we've been talking about fundraising. If I could get a quick round of applause for our amazing panel members. And a round of applause and appreciation for the amazing support team that we've got putting on these panels. All right. Hey, thanks again. I appreciate your time, and best of luck with the rest of the event. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.